Hello and welcome to amipal, the #1 place on the internet for the sweetest Amiga content. Now, quite a few people have commented over the past that if the CD32 had come with some fast RAM, it would not only have been more capable, but it would have also sold better. But how much of that is true? Now, I'm going to use one of these today. It's a TF328. It's contrary to what that sounds like, it doesn't double the processor speed from 14 megahertz to 28 megahertz. No, it's a RAM expansion, and it's an IDE interface, so you can plug in hard disk or CF card, whatever you got. But it's that 8 meg RAM we're looking at, and we'll play through some games and we'll see what a difference that actually makes. First up, we have Frontier Elite 2, the classic sequel to the best-selling Elite by David Brabham and Ian Bell. This game's very polygon heavy. The intro is quite often used as a benchmark for the speed of your Amiga. You can definitely tell the difference what a faster processor will offer you. Now, this section where the Imperial Courier comes in to land on the planet really shows the difference between the chip RAM only machine on the left and the fast RAM on the right. Much smoother, much higher frame rate, a lot less jerky. You can even see it filling the frame quicker as it changes between viewpoints here on the planet in the city. These videos are both locked tightly together, so it's only when you see the scene change that you can see how slowly it is actually filling that image. And even with the lasers and the spacecraft, the rocket booster emissions, you can really tell the difference in frame rate, because whereas on the fast frame machine it's nice and smooth, on the chip RAM only one you can only see it kind of like jerking about. You see, as long as the polygons are quite low and quite far away, the chip RAM machine is fine, but it's absolutely single digit frame numbers on the left when things get busy, and particularly here with the big polygon heavy ship. I mean, it's single digit frame numbers, while on the fast RAM machine it's fine. I mean, don't get me wrong, it still slows down on the fast RAM machine, but nowhere near as much as the chip RAM only one. It's a lot more playable on the fast RAM machine. I think only when you get the gas giant here in your sights that things tend to slow down quite a bit, but again, it's a lot smoother even then. Here we go, Gunship 2000, one of my favourite flight sims on the Amiga, and a fantastic conversion to the CD32 by Microprose. This again benefits from the addition of fast RAM. You can see how much smoother it is on the right there, particularly when we start turning and start getting targets in the reticule. You'll see on the chip RAM machine, you see a chip RAM machine starts firing rockets sooner, but that's only just because I didn't time it right. But you can see it's just single digit frame rate there on the explosions, while on the right we'll start firing rockets, and yeah, it's just there's just so many more frames for those explosions. So it does really benefit from it, and it makes a great game even better. Guardian, what was once a CD32 exclusive, then followed with an A1200 A4000 release. This intro is pretty similar on both sides, but I do notice one thing, is that when the chip RAM machine does drop frames and actually slows down, machines get out of sync with the fast RAM machine. The fast RAM machine actually finishes this a good 8.5 seconds before the chip RAM machine does, so clearly there is a difference. It does slow down on the fast RAM machine, as you can see when all the ships have passed by and it's particularly busy, but it's well out of sync by the end of it. And in gameplay, I didn't really notice too much difference, but from a viewing point, you can clearly see it. Obviously, when the mothership comes down, it slows down a bit. When things get a bit hectic on screen, it also slows down a bit, but it's not that far different. I expect to see more difference, possibly because there's never really that many polygons on screen at one time. I think most of the heavy lifting of the visuals are done by the background and the graduated landscape itself. In the view, there's only really the odd tree and the odd building and one or two enemies, so it's only when things get really busy, when enemy ships blow up or your ship blows up, that the slowdown's more likely to hit the chip RAM machine. We move on to Alien Breed 3D. Huge difference between fast RAM and chip RAM. I mean, it's blooming obvious when you look at it. Of course, this makes it inherently more playable on the fast RAM machine. I did play through the game on an A1200 with an 8 meg RAM expansion back in the 90s, and it just made so much more difference. Much more playable. I mean, the chip RAM machine's more likely to slow down when things get busy on screen or when walking into a large room, and that makes it struggle. It's just the increase in the computation it's having to do. And when it comes to firing at these devil dogs here, I just lose track of them on the chip RAM machine. They're moving faster than you can react to them because of that lackluster frame rate. And it's just, this is a great example of where fast RAM does make a huge difference to gameplay. The chunky to planar conversion can just work through that much more quickly. So the processor's trying to convert the chunky PC style screenwriting to the Amiga's planar architecture. And while obviously that involves a performance hit that a PC would not have to do, with the Amiga we've got much slower processes of the typical PCs around that era. So, you know, that little extra helping hand is where the fast RAM and the CPU's quicker access to it really pays dividends. And lastly, we have Subwar 2050, and we see another performance increase. Maybe it doesn't make such a huge difference to actual gameplay with it though. That's mainly because it's a submarine simulator, so you know you're not exactly flying around a fast landscape. Get down into the depths where you've got the polygonal seafloor, and that's where we see a difference. But again, I think it's one of those things where it's not going to make a huge difference. And it just makes it that little bit easier to react to things, particularly when you're going too fast and hit the seafloor. So, it does make a difference. For polygon-based games or chunky to planar conversion, clearly it makes a big difference. Games are smoother, they're more responsive, they generally play better because of the higher frame rate. Some of them even load that little bit faster because the slower frame rate of the chip RAM only machine holds it back. But would that have made a difference? I mean, that TF328 that I showed in the intro, that's really cheap. I mean, what, 120 quid or something? But we're talking about an expansion from the 2020s or whenever it was released. I mean, yeah. 8 meg of RAM was, well, 4 meg of RAM, I think. No, 2 meg of RAM from a CU Amiga in May 1996, 2 meg of RAM SIM module was £75. Okay, that's over a year since Commodore went bust. You know, 18 months before that, I don't have an earlier magazine. I've tried doing searches on the internet. No one will tell me. I can only get dollar prices. But for GBP, for pound sterling, May 1996, 2 meg was 75 quid. If you wanted 4 meg, that was £110. So you've got your initial release date CD32, so September 1993 is £299. Okay. Commodore could probably have got a bit of economy of scale, saying we're going to build 50,000 machines, we want to put some RAM in them, we are not going to use the ultra fast 60NS RAM modules that you want to put in, you know, your render farm A4000. We're just going to go for a slow like 70NS, 80NS sim. Well, it wouldn't be a sim, it would be surface mounted, but you get the point. Either way, that's going to bump the price up. And it wouldn't have been 75 quid in in September 1993, because that's from May 1996. You know, we're that bit further ahead, and the price of memory has gotten cheaper and cheaper and cheaper every year, on and on and on. So back then, it probably would have been 100 quid, 125 quid for 2 meg. Add that to the 299 of the CD32 release date, and you're you're up in the 400s. Why not buy an A1200 at that point? Why even bother looking at the CD32? And people would have also been thinking, well, why am I going to pay like 400 quid for a console whose capabilities? So I can see microcosm, that looks rather lovely, but everything else that seems to be being shown on it is a platformer or a shoot 'em up that I can play on my SNES or my Mega Drive. You know, regardless of the amount of memory that you put on a CD32, yeah, you could put 512 meg in. Well, no, you can't. But even then, okay, just imagine, right? You put that amount of RAM in a CD32. It is not going to increase the speed of the processor. It is not going to make the AGA chipset more capable. It's not going to hold a candle to the machines that are just around the corner from it. The Saturn, the 3DO, the PlayStation. Commodore didn't have the pockets for the marketing that Sony could offer, or even Sega really. And the fact that they couldn't get into that US market for the CD32 because I think there was something to do with unpaid patent infringement fines or something, so they wouldn't allow it to be shipped to the US. It really was the kind of the death knell of both of the machine and Commodore itself. What about a faster processor? Bung one of those in there. Well, again, I don't think it would have made much difference, because as soon as you're going from that cheap 680 or 68 EC020 to an 030, that bumps the price. And there's no point having an 030 without fast RAM, because you won't get much more benefit over that cheaper processor. So again, then you need to... I just don't think the costs add up. I think a more expensive CD32, a more capable one, definitely, but a more expensive one would not have sold any better, because it would have been too pricey. It's a bit like the Atari Falcon, you know, a very capable machine, but, you know, the contemporary of the A1200 even, and it had faster processor. It had an, did it have an FPU on board? No, DSP, didn't it? So a very capable machine, but they couldn't really show anything that actually used it. Why abandon all this stuff to just run on that when I've got the A1200, which will run 90% of the software, 95% of the software of the most popular computer in Europe? So that's my thought about it. So yeah, whenever anyone says it should have had more RAM on it, the same goes with the A1200 on release, you know, it should have had some fast RAM on it. Well, that's all well and good, but is anyone going to pay that extra 50, 75, 100 quid for it? Interesting thought, isn't it? So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Any thoughts or any comments you've got on it, please whack them below and subscribe. whatever. And I hope to see you soon. Cheers.